Welcome. Thank you for joining. Today is Tuesday, April 16th. This is the second meeting of our Bicycle Industry Retailer and Supplier Best Practices panel. I'm Heather Mason, President of the National Bicycle Dealers Association. The purpose of this panel is that the NBDA wanted to unite the industry to take immediate action to formulate best practices for retailers and suppliers going forward. The state of the industry with excessive inventory, margins that vary, reduced foot traffic, changing technology, a change in consumer spending habits, inflation, all these things have prompted both retailers and suppliers alike to face what I would call extraordinary times. So the goal of today and forward is to bring proactive thoughts on solutions that could facilitate global level supplier and retailer positive health. We sincerely appreciate the panel members who have volunteered their time and expertise to today's discussion. Prior to this event today live, tremendous energy has gone in the weeks prior into making today's conversation, this platform, a resource for retailers and suppliers to work united. So the conversation, the insight, the comments that will be shared today are meant to give an opportunity for us to see varying opinions, and we'll take what we want that's useful to us and disregard the rest, but for whatever purpose, we'll find something in value, and as a unit, as a whole collective, we'll be headed towards a positive journey. I thank the more than 20 panel members who have joined today. If you're joining as a viewing participant, we welcome your participation. So you can place questions into the question forum, and throughout today's event, the panel members and the NBDA team will monitor, and we might answer some of those questions live, while others we will address in a chat back. So assisting in the moderation of today's event is NBDA Board Chair Peter Henry, and Peter is going to open us up with a few words for the good. Peter?
Well, thank you, Heather. And thank you to the NBDA staff who's done a lot of work getting this event together. And thank you, panelists, and also thank you to everyone here, all just viewers. You are also joining in the conversation and the work of dealing with these extraordinary times. As extraordinary as these times are, much of what we are all about is the same as it ever was. Every product that we deal with was once new. Maybe it was launched this week, maybe it was launched 100 years ago. But that product started as something in someone's imagination. It was designed, developed, manufactured, transported, often internationally, distributed from truckloads to pallets to cases to single units, marketed, sold, and placed in service to become a part of some one individual's bike ride. And that bike ride was the very best part of that individual's life on that day. Had any one of those tasks not been done, that person's ride might not have happened, and it certainly would not have been as great. And the more people who have a great ride today, the more who will want to ride tomorrow. Every participant in and viewer of this panel discussion performs at least one of those functions that I listed above. No one does them all. We all depend on each other, both to make an individual product successful, but even more importantly, to continually develop, to continually deepen the engagement of a large portion of the public in cycling, to keep it a significant part of people's lives into the 21st century. Bike shops have people who spend their lives dealing with bicycles and with people riding bikes. We frequently solve problems that those people can't even describe. Sometimes they don't know they have them. But nonetheless, we produce the reaction, wow, this is great. Suppliers need retailers who do that. Retailers need suppliers to provide innovative yet reliable products and support us in standing behind those products for the end user. Suppliers have many needs that can be met by retailers and need some way to assure that newly purchased items perform as intended for each end customer. Somebody dealing with issues of fit, assembly, or installation, and making sure that the end customer understands how to use it. Even the best products can get bad reviews because of just one misunderstanding by a customer. Working with retailers is often the most cost-effective way for product suppliers to get these things done and done well. We often meet our mutual dependencies through a series of transactional interactions, but so much more is possible with better partnership relationships. We all have legitimate needs. Partners help each other to meet those needs. Partnership means clearly explaining one's own needs. Our first responsibility, after all, is to survive and keep our promises. Partnership also means listening to and understanding the partner's needs and flexibly considering ways to help meet those needs. It is easy to create problems for each other, but partners find ways to do better, to help the partner solve its own problems, certainly not to solve the problems for the partner. The changes in technology, the rise of the internet, the trauma and aftermath of the COVID pandemic have produced challenges and opportunities for how we work together. Unchanged is the need to work together. This panel conversation is an important part of the effort to recognize, understand, and accept those challenges. And even better, this panel can start the efforts to recognize and act upon the opportunities. In the spirit of collaboration and gratitude, I again thank all of you for being here. Now back to you, Heather.
Thank you so much, Peter. So everyone knows how the topics for today's conversation were solicited is the NBDA sent out emails to our membership base, to our panelists, asking for topics for considerations. The 4 topics that we chose today were based on those topics that were brought back to us, and we've chosen them for exploration based on relative and timeliness. So how the forum will progress today is that we have 4 topics of exploration. I will read the topic question, and then our panel members who have volunteered to speak on the items will talk, and then we will openly solicit any additional comments from panel members, and then also answer and welcome any submitted attendee questions. Today is truly supposed to be a conversation, so after our panel members go, we do welcome any of our attendees to come into the conversation. I will also say that being a panel member, we appreciate the panel members who have volunteered their time, and we have some retailers on this panel, and we welcome more retailers and more suppliers to this panel at any time. So following today's event, anyone could reach out to me directly, and we'd be more than happy to bring more panel members on board. All right, so with that, let us begin with our first topic of exploration. This topic is on the D2C model and how we keep the specialty bicycle retailer in the sale. The question for discussion is, how can the direct-to-consumer D2C model be transformed to incorporate the specialty bicycle retailers, also known as IBDs, into the sale process, thereby strengthening the partnerships and acknowledging their important contribution to the industry's collective success. And we have several members of our panel who have agreed to comment on this. We'll speak with speaker 1, Tom Lamp, National Sales Director of Kuwait Racks first. Tom?
Hi, thank you. Peter, you're a hard act to follow, man. You had a lot of good points there. Thank you for setting that up. Yeah, Tom Lampy with Kuwait. I'm the National Sales Director for the brand. I've been with Kuwait for a long time. When I started years ago, I was one of 4, and we've grown quite a bit since then. So I've seen a lot evolve over time. I don't have to tell any of you how important IBDs are to our whole industry. I would bet that most of you on the call, on this panel, in some way or another, had your path shaped by an IBD. And maybe you think about how different that path may be if you'd never walked into that bike shop or never gone on that group ride, how different that would have changed. So the importance of bike shops in those communities and how they are critical to that cycling infrastructure and raise everybody up is important. So we're talking about D2C. It's important, or I guess D2C sales, maybe not something a bike shop wants to hear, that a brand that they work with is starting to sell direct to consumer. can obviously be seen as a competition, but it doesn't have to be. Direct to consumer sales are important to a brand. You know, we as a business need to meet consumers where they're buying product in order to grow our business and produce new innovative product for the bike shop to sell. Now, back in 2008, when Kuat started, we received a ton of local support from our bike shops, and we would not be where we are today without that local support. And then as we grow, of course, the national support, but we don't want to forget that. So as a brand, specifically Kuat going D2C, we want to make sure that our IBD partners, or just IBD partners in general, are part of this sale, you know. So giving back to the shop, a shop that supports us as a brand, giving some of that, I guess, money that we make on those direct to consumer sales directly back to the shop, just for supporting us as a brand, nothing else. Just being part of our community will hopefully help to keep them healthy, keep them in their spot, and allow them to grow along with us, because we need those shops. So keeping them in part of that sale is definitely important. We have some ways we do it at Kuat, and I think it's really important to push that going forward.
Excellent. Thank you, Tom.
Mhm.
Tom, did you want to play a video to show? Was there a D2C playback program that you wanted to show, or should we just link that into the chat?
You can link that in the chat. I can talk to that specifically. So Kuat, back in January, we started selling products direct to consumer. And part of that program is that we make sure that the dealer gets a part of that sale. So we are giving our premium dealers, which dealers that support us on a retail level, 20% of that retail sale. Now, a payback program, or, you know, payments on D2C sales aren't a new thing in the industry, but 20% on a product that you don't have to handle, you don't have to do anything with, but just support the brand in your store, I think is a big deal. If you look at this on a bigger scale and maybe take, I don't know, 10 of your top brands in the store, if 10 of those top brands did the same thing, would that be an impact? You know, would that make a big difference to the bike shop? So we're doing this because we want to do the right thing, and we realize that we wouldn't be where we are without the shops. But it's also kind of maybe an industry push. You know, maybe something like this can change the industry as a whole, and then we all start to support the IBD.
Excellent. Thank you, Tom. And I did just link that into the chat function.
Wonderful.
Really appreciate the work you and your team are doing. Let's move to speaker 2 now. Peter Woolery, managing member at Bicycle Market Research. Peter?
Yeah, thank you. I'll share a screen here. So my name is Peter Woolery with Bicycle Market Research. A little bit of background on me and the company. I spent 18 years working in an independent bicycle dealer in the San Francisco Bay Area. Pertinent to this conversation, I focused a lot of efforts on figuring out how to map the direct consumer fulfillments that were coming in into our point of sale systems, so our service mechanics could easily do the work, and we could recognize the revenue in our system and have that flow into our financial statements, and thus be able to see that emerging segment of the market. We worked with Beeline before they were Beeline Connect, and so we got to see the evolution of the direct consumer model, or the fulfillment model, from the early days of Diamondback and Raleigh up through where we are now. Since then, I've established a separate company focused on research, Bicycle Market Research, and we have developed a direct consumer database that enumerates all of the revenue and unit sales in the direct consumer market. That's going to be released by People for Bikes for their members later this year or next year, but it'll help to give us a broader scope of the overall market. In addition to that, we've enumerated around 99% of the bicycle brands and frame brands in the United States and the English-speaking Western world, and have now expanded that into Europe. I bring that up because that gives us a broader scope of what we're talking about, and to understand how the US market is different than other places. So if we see here in this Venn diagram, this is the count of brands that sell in different sales channels. And clearly there's a lot of brands that choose to sell in direct consumer. And there's a lot of overlap with IBDs and rest of market, that term from Circana that's mass market, Amazon, Walmart, so on and so forth. Now let's pause for a second. This is not revenue. This is not unit sales. This is just the count of brands. And as many of you know, there's a lot of small brands that choose to enter into the direct-to-consumer market because there's lower barriers to entry. Quite simply, retail floor space is super valuable. That's where the premium, high-quality brands eventually move up into in independent bicycle dealers. So ideally, these new entrant direct-to-consumer brands have innovative products, and they can slowly gain ground with consumers and establish their reputation with bike shops. And they have to do that through an evolution in different phases of that relationship. Phase one is the simple one where a brand approaches a retailer and says, hey, can we send you a check or pay you by credit card for an assembly? Phase two is when there's a little bit more trust in the relationship, and they may ask the retailer to do some warranty work or analysis or others to support that end customer. And finally, what we're starting to see now is the emergence of a phase three direct consumer brand where they're putting models on the floor for test rides and higher commissions to the end retailer. And we see that with Rad Power now doing test rides at retailers. And another brand, Woom, who has historically been direct consumer only with really no fulfillment, is now selling to independent bicycle dealers because they've established their brand name well enough that they're able to get that foothold into retail and have a respected relationship. Now, as with all relationships, communication is the most important aspect, and it has to be from both sides, both the brand and the retailer. If only the retailer is putting in the effort, maybe the customer is happy in the end, but the retailer is going to burn out and not want to do that relationship with the brand anymore. So we have to work together so that all parties are profitable and the end consumer can benefit. Now, there's some important best practices for the direct consumer brands out there. Specifically, have clear written expectations before approaching a retailer. Make sure that you walk through the process and try and fill in all those gaps and questions so the retailer knows what to expect and knows how to deliver consistently. Secondly, is to have a prioritized contact for retailers. When a retailer is calling you, it's because there's a customer behind them that has already been qualified by the retailer as needing that contact. There's some step that you are required for. Now, if you use, say, standardized parts, then a retailer can more easily solve the problem and reduce the brand overhead even further. And finally, if you have a good brand reputation of paying quickly and paying consistently, then retailers are going to start simply solving the problems and knowing that you're going to support them on the backside of it. So it has to be everyone pushing in the same direction to support the customer and have equitable value share. So if the retailer ends up doing more work in a particular customer, they are going to get paid more for that. Now, the flip side of this is that retailers should recognize that direct-to-consumer brands, especially in the early phases of the relationship, are their customers. These are people approaching you and paying you to do service. But just like all of your customers, you should choose them wisely. Choose the customers that fit your business model, both in terms of what they sell and how they behave. You want to make sure that it's going to be beneficial for both of you and not just be $100 here and there. Along that same line, you're the retail experts, so you should politely and gently explain the best way to do business with you. Just as you would with any customer buying a bike on your floor, some of them simply don't know much at all, and you have to walk them through that to understand it, but in a way that is not insulting to them and makes them want to continue to do more business with you. On that vein, if the retailer can guide the brand to do a better job, either in that relationship or with their customers, and the brand prospers, they're going to be sending more revenue through the retail, through that particular retailer to support their customers. And if it becomes a really good relationship, then they'll eventually want to floor some in your highly valuable retail space. So we can all profit greatly from this, and especially as we support the customers. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. That was fabulous. Really appreciate your insight there, and really appreciate your points that you shared with us. Very thankful for you. Our final speaker, or our next speaker, I'm sorry, is Patrick Clapp, Account Executive at Citrus Lime. Patrick, great to have you here.
Thank you. So with this question of how can the D2C model work more closely with bike shops in the sales process specifically, I think we need to know a little more about whether it's already happening somewhere. So I took the past week or so to reach out to 30 bike shops, ranging from service-heavy bike shops, heavy-hitting sales shops that move a lot of product, and small city-centric commuter shops. I did try to focus specifically on shops that I found on some sort of dealer locator or affiliate locator from various D2C brands. Then I called 14 direct consumer brands. Largely, they fell into one of two categories: direct consumer only and click and collect with actual dealers, people like Specialized, Cannondale, etc. Those who will try to sell the bike for the customer. Some were prominent, some were rather small companies. The questions to the bike shops were simply trying to understand what existing relationships they had with direct consumer brands and how they felt about it. Then how the relationship with the customers were compared to typical store shopping customers, really to understand whether they felt that the pipeline was congruent in the shop to online. Finally, what I asked is if a D2C only brand popped out of thin air tomorrow and they wanted to specifically have a successful relationship with IBDs, what would that relationship look like? Then with the direct consumer brands, I pretty much asked questions along the same lines. Do you have a relationship with bike shops? If so, how do they work? If not, do you plan on it and do you want it? Now, keep in mind, this data is mostly anecdotal, without hard numbers, and everything is really taken at face value. But all of my shops answered kind of surprisingly in unison, and admittedly somewhat, their musings and responses were a little really surprising in some cases. So not a single shop said that they had a relationship with a D2C only brand, surprisingly, even if the brand listed them as a dealer or affiliate on the website. Shops that had a dealership with a brand that does D2C click and collect cited the complicated processing to be the biggest drawback in that relationship. With shops that sell D2C click and collect, all of them answered that the quality of the sale for those customers is significantly poorer than those that start and finish in the store. Surprisingly, margin was not as big a part of the discussion as I thought it would be. D2C click and collect brands range from a decent margin by today's standards to quite poor, to be honest. Based on the shops I spoke with, I was, like I just said, really, really surprised that margin was not a much bigger part of the discussion. Also, surprisingly, no one really spoke poorly of the D2C model, despite all of them having a range of customer builds and services that were purchased from direct consumer brands. The high-end shops saw between 10 and 15 customers a week that either had a direct consumer build or a direct consumer bike that they were asking to be worked on. And on the low end, 1 or 2 per week. Most shops even exclaimed at winning back the direct consumer customer in certain circumstances and converting them to a regular, specifically taking advantage of the poor educational reach of the direct consumer brands. Many shops I spoke with made the distinct point that the D2C customers are not their customer. More on that later. In terms of the ideal relationship, the key words from all the shops were good support, access to proprietary parts, good communication, both to the shop and to the customer, streamlined process, low or no upfront costs or risk-free, joint marketing, advertising, and good education. Now, for the DC brands, when I spoke with them, also surprisingly, all but one of the brands I spoke with said that they had no relationship with IBDs, despite those brands having the dealer and affiliates listed on their websites. The one that did have a relationship with the IBD said that they only did so as a courtesy to the shop, offering them a very small percentage off of a purchasing bike from their website, kind of like just giving them a discount as though they were a customer. Largely, the brands that I spoke with had no plans to incorporate relationship with bike shops into their operations, but none of them were also necessarily opposed to it. Most interestingly, from my conversations with D2C brands, and ironically, most of them were having problems of being really busy, and their biggest gaps directly were contrary to the very D2C model of making it easy to get that that market share. They needed customer service, they needed product support, all the things that the bike shop said we would like them to do, they were having problems with. My biggest takeaway here is that shops have, perhaps by nature of complacency, kind of fall into a sense of acceptance about D2C brands and have largely seized on what D2C lacks. There is no one answer, but there do seem to be common needs from the bike shop side. When I mix in my own experiences in work, I'd say that the biggest challenge here is the communication. Each party is just sort of quietly doing their own thing and responding to the other reactively. So as many other of the challenges in our industry, I think it'll take olive branches coming to the table and discussing how it can work properly, if at all. Bike shops, I think you should seek out the D2C brands that you'd like to partner with. A lot of them just don't hear from bike shops, and so they think everything's fine. So I think if you curate the brands that you would like to work with, you might be able to find that there's some give and take there that they can come up with a really good solution for you. Work with them to find a mutually beneficial relationship. D2C brands, start small. Shops have a very low bar. If you are the least painful part of their day, that's a good place to start. Grow from there and add benefits as you go. Focus more on education and outward communication with the bike shops. Reliance on the IBD means backing them up when they need it and expressing their prowess and expertise. Maybe even consider selling services for the bike shops on their behalf. Make it easy for them so they can make it easy for you.
Excellent. Thank you, Patrick. You put a lot of work and effort into that, and I really appreciate that. All right. Let's take it over to speaker number 4 today, Ryan Atkinson, President of WorkStan. Ryan, great to have you here.
Thanks for having me, Heather. So, at WorkStan, we work primarily with more traditional IBD brands in both the bike and aftermarket space. I was very interested to hear what Peter had to say about I guess what I wrote down as like channel development strategies of some of the D2C brands that I consider more emerging. And we see that in the calls that we receive. So we're really now inundated with calls from newer entrants, especially in the e-bike space, that want to submit catalog content to WorkStan because they're really interested in being able to pick up IBD business. And a lot of the dealers I speak with really require that the D2C brands operate like a traditional brand. So I expect in that Venn diagram that Peter showed that a lot of that crossover is going to start getting deeper with the brands that do position themselves as more premium. I was also glad to hear that Patrick said that the retailers he spoke with didn't necessarily characterize D2C relationships as kind of negative strategically. And I'd imagine that most people on this call also just accept that the current realities of the market have changed. And as retailers, it's how do we adapt to those changes? And so my point of view is really around strategy and data. I believe that from a strategic standpoint, looking at the traditional brands, that having a diversified distribution strategy is very healthy. And I emphatically believe the same thing for retailers. Consumer shifts in shopping behavior are really driving these changes. And so it is necessary for a brand to be able to meet the consumer where they are. And really, I would say that retailers are the same thing. We don't want to put a retailer in a spot where a consumer interested in shopping online has a narrower range of options. I think we want the retailer to participate that as well. And so strategically, it makes sense for a retailer to participate. But looking at data, my main area of focus is how do you use your local inventory to participate in D2C sales? In all aspects of your business, inventory is a marketing tool. And so you own it, you've invested in it. It's a way for you to attract a customer to purchase from you, whether that customer purchases on your website, in your store, or on a brand's website. So it's important to integrate with as many of the popular product locator services you can. Examples would be Buy Local Now, Locally, Beeline Connect, or S Connect, which would be more the specialized program. And a product locator is very different than a dealer locator or an affiliate listing. It is a brand's merchandising your own inventory to a consumer shopping on the brand's website. And then brands have a multitude of different programs that either just direct traffic to you for a consumer to purchase, or maybe they close the sale on their own website and have a variety of different revenue sharing models. But in a world where some percentage of consumers are choosing that path, I would really encourage every retailer to participate in as many of those sales as possible, because some revenue is better than no revenue. And anytime you can move product off your floor, the better off you are. It is, of course, important that you do have a modern point of sale system that has the capability to record and share data. That is especially for growth-oriented retailers. If the market does continue to shift more towards direct consumer purchasing online, some from brands, we want to make sure that you're participating in that and not being left out. So then the next piece is capitalizing on direct consumer sales that comes from the supplier inventory. And there are a number of suppliers who are doing this very well right now. Giant comes to mind. And I think
You
it's,
brought
you
a
know,
team
whether
out
it's,
already?
oh, sorry, what's that?
It's good, Ryan. I'm sorry. One of the panelists came unmuted. I
Oh,
apologize.
okay. And in some cases, capitalizing on just build payments from suppliers, viewing it as a customer acquisition opportunity to educate and develop. And back to the data piece, the customer acquisition isn't just the customer coming in the door and having a conversation, it is the data. So the customer's contact information, when plugged into your own remarketing vehicles, primarily email marketing, is going to be a way for you to be able to nurture lifetime value from that customer. All the brands will tell you that data is really crucial to their businesses. All top performing retailers see the same thing. I would encourage everybody on this call to also be really, collecting as much consumer data as possible and then utilizing it with an email marketing program. And then lastly, and I'm sure that Patrick would agree with this, make sure that you also have a first party direct sales or direct e-commerce business available for yourself. If the consumer is making their choice in terms of where to shop, don't let yourself be excluded for that consumer who wants to shop online. Virtually all purchases start with search. You can show up in search. The consumers are going to visit multiple sites in their purchases, and you see this when they walk into your store. They've visited brand websites, they've looked at reviews, they've watched YouTube videos. You want to show up in that process. You're going to win a portion of those sales. And so again, it's fortifying your business against the change that's happening in the marketplace. And suppliers, whereas they may make a healthier upfront margin on direct consumer sales on the whole represent a much smaller part of their business than the IBD channel. They would much rather have you be a healthy long-term partner for their business. And that means, making sure that you're evolving your business and growing your sales and realizing the best margins you can, because then that's a win-win for them. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Ryan. Really appreciate the 4 speakers who gave insight to this topic. Would any other panel members like to add anything at this point? Okay, Michael from the Canadian Electric Bicycle.
Hello, everyone. I just wanted to say, I know there's a perspective from D2C. I own an e-bike shop for 15 years. We get a lot of D2C e-bike companies call us on a daily basis, wanting us to be either a pin on their map or unauthorized service center or reseller of their product. And my perspective is we'll say yes to all of them, because we want to be a part of that marketing dollars that they're putting behind their product. They're putting a big push out there. And if they're going to push all the bikes out, we might as well be getting the service for them as well, with the opportunity that a consumer looks online, just as Patrick and Ryan was saying, to be that pin on the map that's local. What if you're 2 blocks away? They find the company online, you end up being 2 blocks away. They can walk into your shop and purchase that bike because of the marketing dollars spent from that D2C company. So for myself, and I encourage our members to all be a part of that D2C dealer map, so you have a great opportunity, excuse me, to either get the service or get the original sale. We encourage it. So even if you're not getting that initial sale, you're at least getting the service side of the bike as well.
Excellent. Thank you, Michael. Any other panel members for comment here?
Yes, maybe.
Oh, sorry, Ryan, go ahead.
Oh, maybe a question of Peter, I'm sorry, Patrick. There you are. When you were talking to the dealers, or you mentioned that it was nearly universal that the dealers you spoke with said that a D2C customer was not as high a quality of a customer as a direct purchase. Did I hear that right?
Not their customer. And thank you. I realized that I skipped over that part that I wrote, elaborating on that. I think this is a fundamental misunderstanding with bike shop owners. And I think that I know where it comes from, but it doesn't really matter where it comes from, honestly. It's this idea that someone who shops online specifically is somehow different from someone who wants to shop in store. And the reality of that is just that it's not true. There are so many customers now that want to shop a different way. I very often bring up this anecdote that my wife will do everything she possibly can to not talk to another human being. And every purchase she makes is in line with that. And she'll take advantage of all these e-commerce benefits of, buying climbing shoes, and she'll get 3 sets and return the one that doesn't fit, and it's easy peasy. Whereas I will, go into a shop, talk to people, if I want to, or I'll shop online if I want to. And there's a mixture of those different types of consumer behaviors. The not my bike shop consumer, or not a typical bike shop consumer, that could just be anyone who's getting interested in bikes. They've never been to a bike shop before. So I think someone asked me this in a Q&A, why partner with a D2C brand that's specifically going outside of the confines of the IBD channel? They're capitalizing on a customer that bike shops simply aren't capitalizing on right now. And so in some cases, that is hardened bike riders who know what they want and they don't need the bike shop to tell them anymore. But in a lot more cases, it is the people that want to shop online. And so they're going to go with wherever the education is the easiest. Although, again, the education was the biggest issue for both the bike shops and the customers that have an issue with finding the right bike. They'll go with wherever it is easiest for them to shop. And this really goes back to something that I know Ryan, anyone else who does e-commerce knows, customers rarely shop just on price, it's on convenience. If it's convenient, they'll buy it. And if it's convenient to get it, they'll buy it now. So if they can get to your shop, or they can find a bike in stock somewhere, they're gonna buy that. I've even found in some of my data that customers will pay more for a bike if it means they can get it now. And if that means a bike that's in stock at a store, or if that means, next day delivery from a D2C, it really depends on who gets there first. Yeah.
Patrick, I like that take. Maybe a follow-up for any retailers that are on the panel. Like, let's say that if we start with the assumption, or what Patrick heard around some dealers characterizing a D2C or an online buyer as different or less than, do you think that that's kind of falsely attributing the characteristics of that, or as kind of less than, to an online buyer? If 100 bike buyers walked in the store and bought, couldn't you say that some portion of those buyers are kind of, what would you say, maybe lower quality than kind of the premium customers? Like, so is that just being a retailer, that some customers are quote unquote better than others?
That's a great question, Ryan. We do have Karin, who's on the panel with a hand up, and then a retailer who's an attendee who wants to talk too. So let's get some feedback on that. Karin, would you like to go first?
You're welcome to take the attendees first.
Okay, all right. Matthew Wallen. Just go ahead and unmute. Yep, perfect.
Got it. I think I'm on your panel too, actually.
Okay.
Later today. So we've been a rad partner since the beginning, like since they very first came out with their very first program. And we've been doing it for years now with them, and we became a rad demo partner just this last December. And one of the biggest problems with the integration of that, it's not about the qualification of the customers or any of that type of stuff. We've openly embraced all of that. Actually, one of our biggest pain points has been integration, and so that's been the biggest trouble.
Can you speak to the question that Ryan was asking then, just about the customer? Do you have any feedback on that?
The customer itself, they're not lower quality at all. In fact, one of the biggest challenges in the industry that we've had is bringing new people to the industry and to the table. And this does that in spades. It brings a ton of people into the shop that otherwise wouldn't be there. And so if you have the outlook or the image that this is a lower quality customer, you're looking at it in the wrong way completely, I think.
Excellent. Thank you, Matthew. Let's go ahead and take Trey Richardson. Trey, I see your hand up as an attendee. We'll go ahead and you can just unmute now and should be able to talk.
Can you hear me?
Yes, perfect.
All right, I guess the video is not coming in. Do I need to change that?
However you prefer. We can hear you, so video is not needed. It's okay.
Okay, I was just trying to see it in the settings here, but no, I got, I guess, a few comments to a few of the panelists. This has been great so far. A couple of things too, and this just kind of goes into what Peter was saying early on, because it kind of connects also to where Ryan was talking about data. And one of the things you do want to do also is, you want to choose your customers. Like, don't be afraid to divorce a customer, that type of customer you don't want, that fits into your, I guess, culture that your shop has. But one thing you don't want to do is ignore what consumers are wanting, because I'm going to tell you, the competition is doing that. They're adjusting, they're steering the rudder based on kind of what the customer is wanting a little bit of. So digging your heels in too deep sometimes can also hurt you if you don't, diversify a little bit. So definitely take in what your customers are feeling. Talk to your employees, talk to the people that have their feet on the ground, that are dealing with the customers, kind of see what's out there. And then kind of going back into what Ryan was talking about, data. One thing I've learned is data can be very intimidating to those that haven't really swam in it very much. I have a love-hate relationship with data myself, but data to brands has become as, if not more important than profit. They're looking to be able to better forecast what their next move is, and it's better to go with a safe bet rather than end up with either excess inventory or not enough, putting their marketing efforts into the wrong region and whatnot. So a lot of brands now are really starting to get more fluent with how they use data, and even the small ones. And dealers learn a little bit about it. That's I tell everyone, just, you don't need to become experts in it, but because you don't want to also just carpet bomb data and just, spin your wheels. That really doesn't net you any sort of return on investment. So the short of it is, get enough familiarity with the data, have a system in place that can do that for you, where it's more automated. And it may be just like you would hire someone to build wheels or whatnot, look towards maybe hiring someone part-time, contract or whatnot, to maybe start doing some of that data.
Thank you, Trey.
College students are great, so a resource.
Thank you very much, Trey. Thank you so much for participating. I see Peter Henry with his hand up too, and then we'll get to Corinne.
Yes, so there's the comment about the lesser customer. I think part of what was being said there was that the interaction for the customer hadn't been as good. The transactions the customer hadn't been as good. And I know I've heard at Landry's shop that I used to work at, and I haven't for a few years now, but I still hear, people got the wrong size. They got a bike that was not really suited for what they were thinking of doing. You know, something in the marketing hype that was written on the page sounded good, but it was really something that was fairly irrelevant to what they're going to do with the bike. Like they might have had a road bike when they really wanted a gravel bike, and things of that type. And so they got a bike that just wasn't suitable for where and how they were thinking of riding. And that's a big risk with the online sales.
Thank you, Peter. Karin, thank you.
I think I have 2 points. One is to piggyback off of what Peter said, which is that one of the really, from what I see, I run a bicycle shop, and what I see is there's a really important detail here that is not necessarily being talked about, which is how does the D2C brand or the company selling click and collect understand the value of the bike shop, and how do they translate that to the customer who's buying online, so that the bike shop can do the best work for the customer, the shared rider, in terms of getting the right bike, getting the bike that fits the best, like fully creating the highest value experience for the customer to make sure that they put the most number of miles on that bike that they end up purchasing from our industry. The second thing, and related, I think, is that there hasn't been any conversation here about the liability that a bike shop takes on when they take on a D2C brand. So a D2C brand is not actually just a bicycle shop's customer. We actually adopt liability the second we start working or selling one of those bikes. And it's critical that the brand think about that and think about the onboarding process. So in a changing landscape like the one that we see in like electric bicycles, the onboarding of product needs to include things like UN 38 paperwork for batteries. It needs to include all of the required, MSDS sheets or whatever the product requires. All of that needs to come to us because we're responsible for it when we start to sell your product. And not thinking about that in a holistic and considerate way means that the relationship can't start in a respectful way. And so it's absolutely critical baseline infrastructure to get this all moving in the right direction.
Excellent. Thank you for pointing that out. Important facts there. I see a lot of heads nodding. Anyone else want to comment on this topic? Lots of great ideas here. I applaud Workstan and Kuat for the positive steps you're taking. All right. Well, thank you, panel members. Peter, thank you for bringing that valuable data to show, and Patrick for your time. I really appreciate our speakers on that topic. Let's move forward then. Our second topic is cost-effective demo strategies for bike retail. And the question for the panel is, how can bicycle retailers and suppliers collaborate effectively to offer a diverse selection of products in store for communities of riders to test or demo without having the financial burden on the retailer of stocking the inventory? So we all know the importance of having a test or demo fleet. Most times it falls back onto the retailer's shoulders, not always, but most times. So let's just have a conversation here about cost-effective strategies that provide a win-win for all and allow our community to test or demo more products. Our speaker for this is Karin from the New Wheel once again. Thank you.
I'm new to this panel, but if Heather, do you have anything that you wanted to start with for the topic, or was that really your opening?
Yeah, that's my opening. So you
Okay.
can get any direction you'd like to go.
Okay. I think that, so at the New Wheel, we opened about 14 years ago as an electric bike brand. And we haven't had a lot of experience in kind of like traditional bike shops. I've never worked in a traditional bike shop. But the thing I really wanted to share today with all of you, because you come from such a diversity of backgrounds, is that there's a culture around demo product and demo programs that I see in the bike industry that is very distrustful. There's this idea that there's gonna, that a brand will give away product or give away long terms, and that the bikes will get stuck in the back corner and the mechanics will ride them home and they'll do the industry no good, or they'll do your brand no good. And I've never understood that. Because what I see is that product that we demo sells. Even if just my mechanics ride it, it sells, because they're the people who are doing the work with the customers. They're the people who are doing the work for the riders, and that is what is so critical. And so my only recommendation really on the shop side is make your demo fleet beautiful. Make sure it rides like a dream. Make sure it works like a dream. Make sure you haven't pulled parts off of it to, Frankenstein something else together. And on the brand side, have faith in your retailers, because the reason we do this work is not because we're like shysters of some sort. It's because we want to get people on bikes, and the best way to get people on bikes is through a good demo program. And a good demo program is a program that recognizes that the best demo programs will require that those bikes stay, or those products stay on the floor for a good year. So we need really long terms. And that when we're able to sell them, they're going to be very well used and very well loved. So we also need a good discount on them. This is the best marketing dollars you can put into your program, into your product. So just do it. And that's the end of my 2 cents on demo.
I love that. I love that. Well, this is fabulous. I like the point you brought up about having a great demo program in place and what components of a great demo program might look like. Any brands, suppliers on the call have questions that they want to ask their retailers, or anyone else want to chime into this topic? Matt, thanks for being here.
Let me unmute here. Yeah, so I have to agree with Karen. Having a good demo program, meaning an active demo program where you have bikes on the floor that are there for customers, or at least available for them to see, touch, feel, rub up against, it goes a long way in the sale of the bike. I can talk till I'm blue in the face, and but the ride and the ride quality, meaning that I've done my job as a retailer to make sure that the bike is ride ready and maintains its ride readiness. That's what ends up selling the bike. Ultimately, all I can do is steer them towards it. But if I don't have a bike to demo, or I don't have anything for them to see, then they're not going to be steered towards that. The brands that make it easy for me to do that are the brands that I tend to gravitate towards, because I can't afford to floor every single model of every single manufacturer that I even carry, let alone just a selection of even the ones that I love or like. So having something that's partnering with somebody that makes it easy for me has been quintessential in sales. And I can tell you right now, the brands that we have done, that we've partnered with, we've sold probably more units. We'll definitely have sold more of their units than brands that we are not demoing or that we just have on the floor. And that's not even like oh, well, maybe a little bit more. It's a lot more that we sell, because people can see it, touch it, ride it. We take them to events. We do different things. We're very active in how we go about it. And so I think that also contributes to that, because we're doing our part. The manufacturer did theirs. They put their trust into us. We're doing our part as retailers, and you have to do that as a retailer for that to be successful.
Excellent. The two-way street is really important to point out. Matthew, so happy you're on the panel. So great to see you. Some hands up. I see Jerry, Chief Frog at Frog Bikes. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me. So I'll change the accent a little bit. So we're a manufacturer, and I totally agree that you guys as retailers need to have the product on the floor. The only challenge is if we deal with 650 retailers across the country, how do we fund it? So it's an expensive product. We're happy, and from our point of view, we do 15 different products in lots of different colors. Is it right the manufacturer funds it? Do you think there's got to be a two-way street in here? And I fully get the retailers shouldn't fund it, but we've got to find a solution that works for everybody. I mean, for us, putting 250 bikes cost us $100,000.
Right.
So the challenge we as a group need to look at is absolutely we need to get product so that consumers can try it. But how do we fund it as a group?
Thank you, Jerry. That's exactly what we're talking about. I love it. I'm glad that you put it out there so we can all start thinking. Ryan Atkinson from Workstand.
I'll be interested in Karen's thoughts on what Jerry just said. I thought it was favorable terms, but maybe I missed something there. But also originally I raised my hand because Karen, you brought a good point that putting demos in shops is a great marketing investment for brands. I would say that offering test rides is a competitive advantage for shops. And so there's also a marketing component to that is if you are going to invest in a demo fleet, even if that's just an investment in space, to make sure you are marketing it, to make sure that the only people who know about it aren't just the customers that walk through the door. So make sure it's on your website, it goes out on social and email, and use it to grow your sales.
Thank you, Ryan. Patrick, clap.
Thank you. Well, to Jerry's point, I completely get why that question is being asked. However, I feel it's really indicative of how we have and used to be doing business. The answer, I don't think it has to be black and white or one or the other. It can be yes or both. So from the retailer side, I mean, it's not always going to happen. It's not always going to work. Ask for a demo for free. If you are a really high producing dealer, just say, give me a demo for free. The worst they're going to say is no. It's not like they're going to say no and you're no longer a dealer. They're just going to say no if they're going to say it. But another way you could do it is give it for free if they sell a certain number of models of that bike. If you give them a demo and it sells 15 bikes, your demo is paid for right then and there. Bake it into the margin for that initial sale. Boom, there you go. That way both of you pay for it and you both win.
Awesome. I did hear when Karen was talking earlier, it was she was asking for longer terms, not saying she wasn't able to pay for it, but asking for extended terms. Karen, did you want to, I saw some other hands up, but did you want to comment first?
Yeah, sure. I don't think that the product needs to be free. I think that this is just the #1 marketing tool for your brand and for my brand. And if there's alignment between your marketing, like, hey, go into the New Wheel and test ride a bike or test ride, try out our bike rack or whatever it is, that can really push people much, much closer to purchase much more quickly. So what I'm talking about and what has worked well for us is not free product, because I don't really want free product. I don't want you to tell me what to demo. I'd like to work with you to develop a great marketing strategy for my market, because that's what I know. So I'm not looking for free product. I'm looking for product with great terms so that we have a solution to the cash flow problem. And with recognition that if I put 1,000 miles on that demo bike and sell 100 units or whatever it is, that you guys will tip the hat off to me and help me sell the bike at a discounted rate. And I think that there are lots of creative ways to do that, especially with newer product like e-bikes and product where you have odometers and like some really kind of interesting and high level ability to collaborate on this.
Thank you for that clarity. A couple more comments here. Peter Henry.
Yeah, who's going to pay for it? Ultimately, it is our customers that pay for these things. They have to pay all of our expenses. They have all of the retailers' expenses. They have to pay all of the suppliers' expenses. And if, in order to sell more bikes, we need more money, we need to ask for the customers for that money. And if by giving more and better demos, we enhance the perceived value of our products, then they'll be more than happy to give us that money. And I've gone down in flames trying to have this conversation with suppliers many, many times. They say, oh, if we raise our prices, we won't be competitive. And yeah, they might not be competitive with the other bike brand, but they're not the other bike brand, they're their brand. And, you know, I know that we bike shops are not competitive in being able to offer benefits and offer good pay to our employees. We're not competitive in being able to pay for quality locations. We aren't competitive to pay, you know, for some of the top advertising venues. Although we work around that now just by doing it all with good imaginative social media engagement. But there are so many things we're not competitive for because we're not willing to ask for the money. And we're not willing to build and have confidence in our brand values. And I'll shut up.
No, thank you, Peter. Yeah, I mean, this topic is definitely going to be one, and any of our topics could be that we all have strong opinions on it. So the idea is we share our opinions. We don't show any disrespect for differing opinions, but we just share them so we can all hear them. Jerry, I see your hand up again.
Well, I just want to be, I think the conversation's perfect. And I like Karen's idea of longer terms. So if anybody wants to take us up on some demo fleets of our kids' bikes in any market, you know where to find me. We've got a team in the US. Very happy to give you longer terms and demo fleets. If you think it will sell bikes, we're up for it.
Thank you, Jerry. I see two attendees who wanted to comment too, so we'll take those. Trey Richardson, I think you should be able to unmute and go ahead and comment.
So one of the things I've, you know, I see this. So I've just a real quick 2-second blurb about who I am. I've worked in retail on, you know, before, during, and after the internet came on. I've worked as a brand manager for a major manufacturer. I've worked as a sales rep for a large distributor. I've worked on the media side. So I've had the privilege of hearing all the conversations from each perspective of how and what people need from each other. And I think one of the bigger things that needs to take place is better communication, and not just communication among one dealer to one supplier when it comes to demos. But I think there needs to be a more concentrated number of voices being heard to kind of see what works for everyone, because this is really going to be about both sides, the retailer and the supplier, reducing each other's risk while reducing their own risks. And that requires a balance. You know, sometimes we want to say, well, whose burden is it? Is it the customers? We want more money from them, or the shops? You know, we're kind of in an era now where retailers can't take as many risks unless there's either a guarantee or some sort of safety net. But suppliers, that's the same thing. So I think there needs to be a lot better and more broad communication over these topics to help each other decide. And don't be afraid to talk to each other. That's the thing. One thing I've learned from the suppliers, they love feedback, whether they want to hear it or not. They love and take it in, and that's the way things get done. And this is a great start. So
Thank you, Trey. We'll take one more comment here. Tony Stewart. Tony, you should be able to go ahead and comment now.
Yeah. I'm a bicycle shop owner in Oklahoma City, regular old bike shop, and broad recognition that there are shops that are out there looking to build and grow the awareness of their brands and their markets. And there's plenty of bike shops that are waiting for people to walk in through their door and don't do a lot of that brand building. And I think when you talk about demo, the risk in offering a system is you're just not quite sure what kind of shop that's going to end up in from the supplier side. And part of that, you know, is going to be your ability to build relationships with your local bike shops, even having a demo application, having an idea with your reps of who are the shops. They're going to really minimize your feeling of risk, because, you know, if you get a demo in that shop, they're going to talk about it up, down, left, and right. Do they have what it takes to do that? And not all of your accounts are shops like that. So I think from the bike shop side, it's recognizing if I do get a demo in, I need to do more than just sit it on the floor. I need to talk about it, get out in front of people. And from the supplier side, that feeling of risk, I think, really comes from sometimes maybe a lack of effort in building relationships with your bike shops. So you know who is going to really do something with it and who is just looking for a discount on a bike.
Thank you, Tony. Some great comments here. Matthew.
You're forgetting to unmute. I just want to piggyback on what Tony said. Before we were brought in for any demo program from any of our brands, we were qualified. They came in, they visited with us, they met with us. And it was the sales managers that came from those entities that first got to know who we were and what our culture was about a little bit, to see if it was kind of aligned with theirs. We don't want to partner with a brand that their product doesn't align with ours. And so it was kind of like we had to meet and see if we wanted to date first. And so here we are.
Excellent, thank you. And there was a comment about just looking how grocery stores charge for premium real estate, and have we ever considered something like that in the bicycle industry, like when it comes to demos? Karen, I saw you replied to that. Do you want to just share what thoughts you had there, or? Oh, you got muted again, sorry.
Sure, I'll just tell everybody what I told them. At the New Wheel, I think we have a challenge and a benefit, which is that our stores are very small. And so brands who don't offer demo programs don't floor in our businesses. So it's very simple. And basically it is like a grocery store model. We need a demo, we need a demo program in order to sell your bikes. And so it's a very direct conversation. And I think it's a benefit for us as a brand to have to be stringent with how we cultivate and develop relationships with our brands and partnerships with our brands.
Excellent, thank you. Thank you for answering that, chat, as well. To keep us on time today, I do need to move on to the next topic. So I appreciate the conversation on this. I think as an industry, we'll continue to look at this. Some really great thoughts. I took a lot of notes myself. I hope everyone got a lot out of that conversation. And I do see some stuff coming in chat still. So if the panel members could take any of those questions, that would be great. Let's move to topic 3. This topic is around a collaborative ecosystem, and talking specifically about optimizing the sales and warranty process. I know the warranty process is a conversation that comes up often in our P2 group conversations. All right, so the question is, how can the industry foster cooperation within the supplier, retailer, and rider ecosystem when it comes to sales and warranty process to enhance the overall efficiency and customer satisfaction? We're looking to make this easier on everyone. So Karen, you've volunteered to be speaker number 1 on this, and then we'll open it up from there. Thank you.
Sorry, I feel like I'm dominating here. I'll keep it short. So I guess the reason I was interested to share this with you all is that I think that I see our role as in the bicycle industry and the moment that we're holding in the bike industry as a really, really special one. Because what we're doing is we are changing something more than, it's bigger than just putting butts on bikes. Like, we're not just offering single rides a good time anymore. We are actually offering transportation. And that's what we've seen at the New Wheel. We are actively growing the pie, as it were. And we have been for a long time. And the approach that it takes to grow the pie is different than the approach that it takes to just sell the same customer or a new product year after year after year. And one of the areas that I see the most long-term success and the biggest challenges is in the way that warranties are handled. And it specifically has to do with, I think, 2 things. One is retailers are essentially not compensated for handling after-sales service on bicycles. And I think there's only really one thing to say about that, and that is that it's wrong, and at some point it's gonna have to change. It is not right for your riders, and it's not right for our industry, and it's not right for the retailers to be saddled with the cost of having to boost the customer's experience in their most difficult moments while everybody else just like keeps doing things the way that they've always, you know, keeps having the day that they've always that they were planning to have. So that's the first thing. And the second thing that I see is that there's a lot of fractured communication in the way that quality issues are understood, whether those on the brand side, whether that is how things are wearing, how they're designed, or just a technical failure of whatever sort. And so what I am here to really ask for is that there be more communication between brands around what is going on with what's going wrong, what's going right with your product, and that it not be so shrouded in mystery. So whether that is, handling all warranties, if you're a bicycle brand, even if you use Shimano or you use Enviolo or you use Bosch, if I was the brand, I would want to know that things were going wrong. And what happens right now is that we submit those warranties with a third party. And as the brand, you don't actually know that anything is necessarily going wrong with your product or that your customers are not happy and that they're going to buy a different brand next time they choose to buy a bike. So there are a few different ways to patch that up. One would be compensating us so that we actually can advocate for your customers so that they stay your customers. That would be like probably a pretty easy way. And the second would be to work more closely across brands at the back end to have very thorough data analysis of what's going wrong and why. And I think that it would help us keep a lot of customers in our industry. Everybody who buys an electric bike is buying an expensive product. They're buying an expensive and great product that can change their life, but it also can just be a big waste of money. And so what are we going to do to make sure that that isn't what happens? Because we are here to grow this pie and we can grow it really, really big, but it's going to mean taking these issues, these very nut and bolt issues, extremely seriously so that we can work together in that area and spend our creative energy doing advocacy, changing our streets, changing our politics, changing the way people buy things so that we can get not just like hundreds of thousands of people on bikes, but millions of people on bikes, because there is an imperative that we get millions and millions of Americans on bikes. We all have to work together to do that, though. That's what I got.
Excellent. Thank you for that. Any conversation from our panel members that want to jump in and add anything here? Peter, thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to throw something out there. After going to the Bicycle Leadership Conference last month, it was pretty evident that especially the larger brands are nervous about not being called out for collusion. So when we talk about brands on the back end having these conversations about what maybe suppliers are having issues and so on and so forth, I don't know the law around it, but I think that introduces nervousness when those executives get together. And so it's just something to be aware of, that sometimes that's the reason for the hesitancy.
Sure, but they don't even have to do that. All they have to do is care, right? Like the warranty just has to go through the brand. Like whoever has their name on the main part of the product that the customer thinks they bought the product from, that's where the warranty should go. And then they can deal with whatever logistics on the back end. But I disagree. What's that?
To clarify, you mean like if you sell a Turn, but there's a problem with the Bosch motor, you go to Turn for the warranty?
If I was Turn, I would want to know that I was having a Bosch problem. So yeah, I would make sure that my brands were coming, or that my customers were coming to me.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Thank you. I see lots of hands up. Peter, thank you for that insight. Eric Peterson.
Thanks. I think one of the things that we do as a brand is our warranty service is performed through our app. The dealer will connect through the bike. They'll submit the claim through the app that gives us visibility on what's happening in the field. It also allows us directly compensate the shop for that that work. The other thing is to Karen's point earlier, is to, and we've talked about this before, is to talk about the bike as a shift away from recreational to transportation and treating it more like the electric vehicle that it is, and shifting warranty specifications. You know, we've gone to a 2-year, 2,000-mile warranty on our product and said that if the owner comes in and compensates you as the IBD for performing that 2,000-mile service, we'll actually extend the warranty another 2 years, 2,000 miles, up to a total of 5 years, 10,000 miles, which actually it validates the work that you're doing in the shop. It also continues that relationship, and it gets the eyes on the product to see what's happening, to Karen's point, what's happening with the product that's got your name on it. So just a couple of changes. I think we're in a position as a smaller organization that we can do that, but I think it's an important change in kind of the viewpoint of what service and warranty looks like.
Thank you, Eric. A couple more comments here. Jerry with Frog Bikes.
I'm just going to pick up, Karen, you're absolutely right. As a brand owner, we want to be knowing about everything that goes on, any products, any problems, and we should be picking it up and totally taking it up with any of our supply base. So we have a problem with Shimano, we take it back to Shimano. The key thing, and the thing that I know all the brands would want, is you guys to encourage customers to register their warranty. It's the most important thing. We struggle. We only get about 10% of our customers who buy our product register for the extended warranty. It's free of charge. It would work even further if we can get them registering, and maybe stores getting them to help register the process, so that we know A, where they bought it from, and B, that they've actually bought it. And then it makes it really simple for a brand to be able to pick up and deal with any problems.
Thank you, Jerry. Great conversation. Let's go over to Patrick Clapp with Citrus Lime.
Yeah, I have a couple notes here. Firstly, to echo a few points made earlier, I myself have worked for several manufacturers, specifically in warranty management, and the bulk of the requests from retailers was simply to get compensation for warranty work. And you'd be surprised at how few even larger manufacturers have no interest in doing that. And so the fight is really real. But the other thing that really drives me to is the idea that there is no standard bike industry warranty process. Everyone is someone different. Submit photos here, do this, like jump through 1,000 different hoops just to get a customer taken care of. And you're dealing with a customer where the clear and present danger is whether they stay biking or they have a bike to ride. A brief aside, any manufacturers that are looking here, I wholeheartedly recommend you go take a look at this company called Layerize. They are doing really great work outside of the bike industry, and they're starting to get some bike industry people as well. They have warranty registration. They have a whole little like separate web app that the customer does everything. They get their support. They can connect with shops, all that stuff. It's amazing. I'll paste a link here in chat. Like I said, they're starting to do bike industry stuff, but they really do a lot of stuff outside of like outdoor goods and things like that. Really cool company to take a look at.
Thank you. And we'll do one more comment here. Karen, I see your hand up. Thank you.
Just a quick thought on, Jerry, your note about having customers sign up, or like sign out their webpage, the manufacturer webpage. One thing, I do think that there's always this tension between retail and especially brands that sell online, and almost every brand sells online now. That's so there is an inherent tension between a brand and a retailer. And I know we work really hard for our customers, and we quite honestly feel a little bit cautious about really going to get our customers to go sign whatever form a brand wants us to sign. And so I think building trust by providing clear communication to the retailer that says, look, we are asking you to fill out this form. This is the email that the customer is going to get back. this is how we're going to handle that relationship and how you will be, you know, included, like what parts of it you'll be included in it, in or not. That would go a long way to helping us feel really good about doing that work, which we're happy to do. But in some cases, because of the dynamic between some of the bigger brands and retailers, it's a very strong-armed process, and it is not mutually beneficial, and that can really poison the well as far as aligning the needs of brands, shops, and riders.
Excellent, thank you. I'm sorry, I do need to move on. We're just running behind schedule. I want to make sure we get to the last two topics. Any of our panel members could put more notes into the chat function. I also want to call out attention to the chat function for our attendees and hosts and panelists. Lots of great comments have been put over in that as well. So let's move on to topic number 4. This topic is from sales to community. So best practices for engaging bike buyers, bicycle buyers, riders. The question is, what effective community engagement strategies have bicycle retailers and suppliers in similar markets employed to establish long-term customer relationships? And could these be shared as best practices within the industry? Such an important conversation as we're looking at increasing ridership numbers, getting people back into our doors, getting people back on their bikes. So best practices for engaging the community, your riders and your community. Several speakers on this topic, and thank you to Matt Wallen, owner of Round Trip Bike Shop, for suggesting this topic. So Matt, I know you're speaking on this one. Why don't you open us up here, please?
Yeah, I kind of dug my own grave on that one, I guess. So yeah, thank you for the opportunity to kind of share this with you guys and to talk a little bit about community and community effort. I know a lot of times in the industry, we talk about community as being like the cycling community, and how can we be a part of the cycling community? How can we foster the cycling community? And we really strive to look at the community as a whole, as everybody's a part of our cycling community. We're in a kind of a unique market in that we're that traditional family store where we do everything from bottom of the barrel to top of the line. And so because of that, we can't look at any one thing as the cycling community, because I've got 90-something-year-old ladies that ride, you know, little beach cruisers that they bought at Walmart around in their RV park, to triathletes and semi-professional cyclists. So I have to engage the entire community as a whole. And so to that effect, it's more like I look at it like a curation and the development of the area around me as potential cyclists, and taking a genuine care and concern for the area that I'm in, and looking for ways that I can improve it, and not just from a cycling perspective, but as a whole overall. The bike shop's traditionally always been a gathering point, or a hub, waka waka, if you will, in the neighborhoods that they serve. It's always been a gathering place. It's always been a place that people have come to and hang out. And we want to do everything we can to continue to promote that culture and to make it an integral part of Main Street USA. We're one of those things that we're ubiquitous with small business in America. We're one of those things that people look to and come to when they can't find anybody else to fix something. They come to the shop to have us fix some random thing, and it happens all the time. So what are we doing in our communities and with our communities and for our communities to engage our potential customers, which we look at as everybody, if you take it from that perspective. So I break it out into those 3 different things about in, with, and for. And as I look at those different things, the first thing I look at is in our community. What is the shop? What is your shop to the area? What is your brand to an area? What is your shop and your brands to the areas that they serve? How do they view them? What do they look at them as? Is it just a place that they go to buy bikes once in a while to get it fixed? Or is it actually part of the community? They see it throughout the community. Is it something that they see throughout it? What is your business doing to bring people into the shop? Are we just focusing on cyclists, or are we focusing on the community as a whole? Are we doing things outside of just bicycles to try to bring people into the doors, and so that they recognize that care and concern that you have for the community? Is your shop that hub? Is it the place where people come to hang out and to meet other people, to see other people? You have a regular cast of characters that come through the doors, and they walk in and you shout their name, and it's almost like a sitcom, right? You have that vibe in your store. Do you have that community engagement? Are you participating in community events? Are you participating in fairs, city events, public safety days, teaching at schools, offering whatever knowledge and assistance we can from our perspective, from a cycling perspective? Are we offering that and participating in those things within the community? And are we engaging our customers online? Are we actively seeking out responses to reviews? Are we answering questions? Are we looking for us to be tagged? And this applies not just to the bike shops, is obviously the brands, everything else like that. And I know a lot of us say that we do that, but we're not always the best at it. And I don't know if there's necessarily a best practices about that, but I felt like that's something that could be discussed here. Now with our community, what are we doing with our community? How are we participating in cycling events hosted by others? Sometimes I kind of look at this from just a shop perspective, but this might be something that the brands may look at as well. Are we engaging and participating in the events? Are we present at the events that are in our area of influence? Even though we're not putting it on, even though we're not hosting it, are we supporting it? Are we there? Are we being a part of it? Because it's by that other guy or gal, are we not participating simply because it's not ours? Or are we engaging in the community as a whole and being a part of that whole entire community package? Are we supporting our customers and their endeavors to improve the community? They may have some things, your customers may have passion items that they're a part of and that they ask us to be a part of. And it may not even be cycling related, but we expect our customers to support us. Are we in turn supporting them and being part of their community, which is ours as a whole? Are we open to supporting events that events proposed or sponsored by other entities other than us? That's what we got to ask ourselves. And I feel that as a best practice, it's important as shops and as brands to be participatory in anything that grows the sport, whether we put it on or not. If somebody else has a fantastic idea and we can engage with that and we can support that and be a part of that, that's a win for everybody as a whole. There's enough pieces of the pie for everybody to get a piece. And I think that we need to support that and be a part of that. Now, the final thing is, what are we doing for our community? As shops, and everyone's going to be different on this, okay? Because your level of engagement totally depends on where you're at. Somebody in Los Angeles, California is going to engage civically much different than somebody in the smallest town in, say, Iowa or something, or even my town, for example. We're a one-horse town, so it's super easy for us to get engaged. It's small. We know a lot of people. You're not going to have that same experience, obviously, in California. But what can you do? What can you do to be civically engaged and being a part of the process and a voice in the area for cycling and just for the improvement as a community overall? Are we making it known to area leaders, organizations, and businesses that we're available for consultation in cycling issues? Sometimes they may not even understand certain things. We're getting a lot of that pushback right now with e-bikes. There's wholesale we're making all e-bikes illegal because there's not an understanding of the different classes of e-bikes and what those e-bikes do and what their capabilities are. We need to be a part of the process and be engaged in our community to make sure that we're there to give of our knowledge and of our time and of our service to that community to make it better. And are we involved in other ways, and not just ways in related to the cycling industry, but are we involved in our communities in ways where we can become genuine stewards of our communities and fostering a better community as a whole? Are we engaging in that? As a brands, how can brands help shops to facilitate that? Are there different things? One of the things that was done was the Buy Where You Ride program. there was a lot of things that was focused on cycling. The NBDA did an awesome job with that. And it wasn't necessarily just a cycling event. It was about bringing people into the shops. And so a lot of those events weren't not necessarily cycling, including our own event that we had, which was, we just did an art gallery for student artists and had a contest. And then we took the art, put it on a water bottle, and it brought in a whole segment of the community that we weren't even previously engaged with. And the results was more than just sales. The results was more than just the customer's patronage. We're part of a good collective vibe in our community, and that in and of itself goes a long way in making sure that all of our businesses do well and are strong in the industries and can grow as everything changes in the landscape. And as we're a part of that change, we can be a part of that process and make it better, not just sitting on the sidelines and reacting. We can actually be a piece of that and making sure that is done in a way that benefits not just us, but our communities that we live and work in. If we make a better community that as a whole thrives, everybody thrives. We thrive, all the other small businesses thrive. And so we should do our part to try to do what we can to support that.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you so much for sharing that. We have a couple additional speakers who have volunteered to talk on this topic. I see some stuff coming in the chat as well. Tony Stewart from the Bike Lab.
Hey, everybody. That was awesome, Matt. Thanks for sharing that. That's a kind of a comprehensive overview of the options that are out there. And what I wanted to talk about today, we got a phone in the background. All right, there we go. What I wanted to speak to, I think as retailers, a lot of times we're in our community that are physically present, and we get the ability to meet people where they're at, sort of. It's still in our space, it's still in our four walls. And I think sometimes we can get complacent of just staying in those four walls all the time, that we've gotten so close to an opportunity that we're just missing out on. So the last couple of years here at the Bike Lab in Oklahoma City, we really evaluated what mobile service would look like. Does it make sense? And we've kind of, centered on pop-ups, because even when your bike shop is slow, it's busy somewhere. And meeting people where they're at now, you hear people talk about the business they have and how the convenience of access creates a very powerful connection. Sometimes it's really inconvenient to get by the shop during shop hours, depending upon your shop. Where we kind of have banker's hours a lot of times. It's not as convenient to connect with us. So over the last couple of years, we have focused on a pop-up strategy that we are going out to farmers markets. We're going out to festivals. We're going out to HOAs, larger rides, and even adjacent retail, like run shops and those sorts of things. Even to the standard lake and riding environments. We have a lake nearby, a huge recreational environment. And once a month, we go out there with a van and a tent, and we do free seat height checks and service checkovers and have some demo bikes there, going right to where people are riding, right where they're active, where they're going to be at for that day. And the connections that we make, the riders that we've already connected to see us out there, and their almost pride in being connected to us as a brand, going out there and doing that sort of thing, is very real in their expression and their connection to it. But it's also the opportunity to connect to anybody who's a bike rider. And instead of really just focusing on our customers and our part of the community, it broadens out our perspective to being a more active, service-oriented part of our larger cycling community here in Oklahoma City. So it's more of a missional approach. It's meeting people where they're at, not just expecting them to always come to us. It's a change in perspective in that way. I kind of consider it playing offense versus playing defense. Getting out there in what I call hand-to-hand combat of just interacting with people where they're at. And over the last 2 years, as we've done that, the industry's obviously not been ripping and roaring along. And when there wasn't a ton of cash around, we did have a ton of time. And so we really invested that into our community, and we are starting to see significant gains in our presence in our market, just because we're the ones that are always there. The pop-ups aren't the only thing we do. We have races that we run and events that we're a part of, and the local mountain bike race series that we sponsor. But I feel like the pop-ups are one of the more neutral and help first sort of ideas that we've come up with and executed on that has created a very high community engagement with people who have bought bikes from us or are looking to get into cycling, because we're that safe place to ask a question because we're right there where they're already comfortable and it's already convenient. So as a best practice, I think even though we're in our shops, what I would propose is that sometimes that becomes a cage and we're missing out on a ton of opportunity to serve and connect with our community outside those four walls where they're already naturally gathering and where there's already a good energy of riding and participation. And that's it. That's all I got.
Thank you. I love the pop-up idea. Thank you for sharing that. Let's see, we have another speaker on today, Vic Yee, co-founder of Oyster.
Thank you, Heather. I think Matt and Tony have shared many best practices already. I'll just keep my part short. So on the topic of sales to community, what we've noticed is that there are more bike retailers and brands that are now providing rental and subscription services as an alternative to the traditional sales model to cultivate a stronger community and diversify revenue streams. And the typical use cases for the rental and subscription service can go from daily recreational rental all the way to extended for weeks for delivery purposes. And there's essentially multiple benefits around the new rental and subscription model. And number one is around customer engagement and flexibility. So different from the sales model, which is usually one-off transactional, rental and subscription provides a customer with more flexibility and terms, and also allows the retailers to foster stronger customer relationship and engagement through the multiple touch points that they have with the end users. And number two is around the local community that is cultivating. Yeah, we saw that the rental and subscription model that a lot of our bike partners are adopting places a stronger focus in the specific region and community, because all the rental assets will eventually need to be returned back to the bike shop. So this helps cultivate a stronger network effects in the local community, such as Jersey City, Los Angeles, you name it. And really, and then when your renters are riding the bikes and go around a city, that essentially is free marketing for your store as well, where they're advocating bike rides in the local community. And lastly, it's on the topic of social empowerment. Rental and subscription essentially alleviates the financial entry to ride bikes and e-bikes, and really paving the way for customers to eventually own bike. And the rental fee can be as low as $20 per day, all the way to $250 per month, versus having to pay for the e-bikes and bikes upfront entirely. And yeah, out of the 200 different bike brands that retailers we work with in the US, we're seeing more brands and retailers adopting this alternative model. Most are adopting the hybrid model where they have sales and rental at the same time. But this is just something that we are observing in the industry, and as they continue to gain awareness, we're excited to see how this continues to evolve in our industry and foster a stronger local community.
Thank you, Vic. What a great thing to bring up the rentals and the value of connecting those riders to our local community. I do see a couple hands up from our attendees. Susie Livingston with Workstand.
Hi, did I successfully unmute?
Yes, you are here.
Thank you. I think these are all really great angles on acquiring new customers. I just wanted to kind of share some notes about building long-term customers from a marketing standpoint. Something that we see is really successful with the bicycle retailers that we work with, using a variety of different softwares, is delivering post-purchase emails that are personalized to that customer's purchase. And you can use it in lots of different ways, whether it is add-ons, so that's going to be, bringing them back in, but also just reinforcing all those reasons why someone would shop with you in the first place. Maybe it's the benefits that came along with their bike purchase, coming back in for their service, check-in, and overall, just kind of helping them enjoy their bike for longer, helping them invest in community, the riding community, or their community as a whole. yeah, I think can be really beneficial to kind of adding to that relationship.
Excellent. Thank you, Susie. Karen, I see you up too. Let's go over to you and have your viewpoint on this. Thank you.
Really, I just have something to put out there, which is we love community events. We, though, have had in California a major constriction in our liability insurance options. And our insurance company is now putting a lot of restrictions on the types of events we can do, how much, where, what, why, when, all of the above. And it is if California is a beacon for what's going to happen to the rest of the country, it's a major issue for bicycle shops. So something to stay aware of and communicate with your brokers about.
Excellent. Thank you for that insight. All right, so we have hit time on this topic. Oh, Matt, you're okay? Okay. All right. So we're coming to a conclusion of today's panel forum event, and I thank all of our panel members for bringing their insight and for our attendees. Many attendees did chime in today, which I love. I really appreciate that. Now what we'd like to do is offer a summary of the topics covered today, just for some reminders. I know after a couple hours on the Zoom, it gets a little long-winded, but I will welcome NBDA board member Kent Cranford, who's going to just give us a nice summary. Kent?
Thank you. This will only take an hour and 45 minutes. There was so many good topics. I mean, all the conversations are all good. 4 topics is a lot. But obviously topic 1, revolutionize the D2C model, keeping the IBD in the sale, was the longest one and probably could be hatched out over an entire 2-hour call for a while. And it'd be, I mean, really as one of the board members that's on the committee for the best practices, it's almost like this would be, we've done some homework on this, and it would be amazing if we could get industry adoption of some of the best practices. But the best one, the first one that came up was the margin sharing with local dealers. Quad has a great model there. I know other brands do too, but that one was represented. I think that's critical with the D2C models and with those brands. Communication, we heard that on almost every topic, but this was the first place. Communication's key. D2C brands are retail customers. Retailers feel that D2C customers are not their customers. So that's an obstacle to get through, and a mindset. The D2C brands are looking for customer support. Partnering up with those D2C brands, because that's the thing that the retailer has that the D2C brands will never have, is a human personal contact. Being strategic. Brands and retailers really need to be diversified in how they're looking for customers and for sales opportunities, leveraging the local inventory. The D2C customers really are future customers, and the data capture on them coming to your store is critical, but also critical for all your customers. And then retail owners should talk with their staff about what their thoughts are and where they feel about the D2C brands that either they are representing or that maybe they aren't and should. So those were the high levels that I got off of topic 1. Topic 2, cost-effective demo strategy for bike retail. I mean, demo product sells bikes. Plain and simply, everybody knows that. I love Karen's concept of that we're trying to, the retailer is trying to be the shyster in this, but which is really a mentality that needs to not exist. But brand programs that are easy are the ones that are going to get used. It could even determine the brands that are brought in based on that. Extended terms and discounted pricing are really what a retailer is looking for a demo program. They're not looking for free bikes. They're not looking for, they don't even mind oversight, to be honest. They really just need the program to exist and to be easy to use. Topic 3, the collaborative ecosystem, optimizing sales and warranty processes. Hey, look, communication. It's the key here. This also should be a best practice process that we put together. The question is we need the industry to take this stuff and adopt it, and not just go, oh, the NBDA gave us a list of things that we should do. What does that matter? It needs to. I mean, we are the voice of retail, and so if we can come up with best practices that are discussed on both sides of the aisle, that are agreed upon, that it would be something that we could get some traction on. But communication, again, is the key here. Retailer compensation from brands is a must. Retailers are by far the lowest paid people in this food chain. And so they need to be compensated for their time. Topic 4, from sales to community, best practice for engaging bike buyers. I love the community ideas. See the community as everyone is your community. It's not just your customers. Reciprocal relationships with other businesses is great. I love Tony's pop-ups. It's always busy somewhere, and going and being there is really great. And then rentals are a great way to be a pathway to new customers. And so those were the highlights that I captured. Okay, it didn't take an hour and 45 minutes. It only took 5. And thanks everyone for being here. It was really enjoyable to hear all the conversations, and hope that down the road, this can be something that the whole industry takes hold of. Thank you
so much, Kent. Thank you for that. So thank you to our panel members, for those in attendance today. Don't let today be the end of these important conversations. If you want to work in partnership, if you want to ask for additional questions or clarity, reach out to the NBDA. We can connect you with a panel member if you don't have their direct contact. We want to keep this conversation going. We were recording today's event, and a recording of today's event will be found on the NBDA YouTube channel within 24 hours. We are always, as I said, welcoming more suppliers, more retailers to the panel. You can always email me, heather@nbda.com. The next panel is set for July 16th, 2024. About 30 days prior, we will begin soliciting topics for that event as well. Really so appreciative of everyone's efforts. Thank you all for sharing your insight, for just joining us in this endeavor, and I wish everyone a happy afternoon. Thank you so much, everyone.